Community Action and Social Change undergraduate minor program fosters the knowledge, skills, and experiences that are valuable to students' development as change agents in society. Within the minor, we often discuss the importance of storytelling, articulating our values for social justice, and connecting both concepts and frameworks to methods of practice that promote social justice. The following video series presents individual case studies of CASC minor students engaged in community-based social action and lessons learned through their journey as allies, advocates, activists, and organizers on campus and in community. We've asked each CASCer to share their story and values and to also describe the frameworks and strategies they've applied to engage in social change. These are their stories.
So my name is Nourel-Hoda Eidy. I am a third year, I'm a junior at the University of Michigan, and I'm studying community and global public health. And in my time at Michigan, I've done a lot of, I've engaged in a lot of like student leadership roles, engaged in like the larger campus community around student organizing, particularly for like the Arab community on campus, but I've also touched in other communities as well. The way I think if I were to rewind back to like being a senior in high school, applying to Michigan, and for my community in Dearborn, particularly like Fortson High School where I attended, it was, getting into Michigan was like a really big deal. And then like, there's always like a wave of students from Fortson that come to Michigan, and they're like, our parents get so excited and they like call everybody abroad and they're like, my kid's going to Michigan. But when I came to Michigan, I never thought that I would be doing the things that I was doing. I was on a pre-med route with the hope of going to medical school, becoming a doctor, following in like my siblings' footsteps because they're all in the medical field. But I think what was different for me was the way I came into Michigan. I was a part of the Big House program Generation 4, and the Big House program was a pipeline initiative for first generation and underrepresented students from marginalized community, particularly in like the Southeast Michigan area, but also touched in like Lansing, the west side of the state, Chicago, Cleveland. And so we were brought to campus in our senior year on 3 different occasions, and they really supported our applying process to Michigan, and then facilitated like our transition to a predominantly white institution for a lot of students of color. There's around like 30, 35 of us, and so very purposefully brought us into the university. And I think with students that went to like Title I schools, low resource schools, that was very, very important. And the community that I built with the Big House program, coming in with 10 other students of color and to navigate campus was really, really important for me, because I think that a lot of students, when they come in from, you know, the communities that we came from, it's a little shocking. It's a little like, it is a culture shock. There's people here with some of the highest incomes in the nation. There's students that have had a ton of opportunities, and then there are students that have, this is the greatest opportunity that they've had to attend Michigan. So I think for me it was when I started to notice these things, when I started to notice that people from my community. So for us, like when you grew up in Dearborn, everybody was Arab, everybody was Muslim, everybody was, most people are on government support. And when you came here, I was like, that's not the case. Like that's not, to us, it was just our reality, it was our norm. Like the discrimination, the stereotypes, everything thrown at us, it was, everybody went through that. Everybody in your class went through that. Everybody in your class spoke Arabic. Everybody in your class, you know, are either first-generation immigrants, or their parents immigrated, or their grandparents. And so when you come here, you go from everybody in your class being just like you to you're maybe the only person in that room that has any sort of marginalized identity, or and particularly like Arab identity. And whenever you state that in a classroom, there's a lot of confusion about like my identity in specific. And so it's like, then the questions come up, and then it's like, hey, like, and so to a lot of us, it was just very, very shocking. And then that's, to me, what pushed me more towards this, creating a community and creating a space for my identity to exist, and continuously creating programs for incoming students to to receive that support, to receive that transitional navigation capital that we always talk about, to make this university feel like it's for them, because it's very easy to feel very like an outsider in these spaces, into a campus that you're supposed to make feel like a home. So that's kind of like how it all began. Yeah, so the thing with the Big House program was it was run by students. It was not a university program. It was facilitated by students, organized by students who had either gone through the program previously, were from these communities, and really understood our experiences. So when we came here, all the gaps that I started realizing would be like, those were the people I relied on. Those were the family that I kind of went to and was like, this is what I'm noticing. Like, what do we do? What do we? And this is like Arabs, Latinx, you know, Southeast Asian, South Asian, and it was just such a diverse community of people. And so that kind of became like the family here. And so one of the spaces that I've continuously been a part of and continuously tried to make better is the Pilot space. And Pilot is a student organization that runs the Big House program. And so I'm now going on my second year as the co-director of the organization, and so it's one of the spaces that I take a lot of like pride in and ownership in, because I think that we continuously bring in new students every single year. A lot of them are first-year students, and it's just providing them with a space, providing them with support, providing them with opportunities to develop various skills and not feel like, and kind of try to like fill in the gaps that like a lot of us felt coming in. And I think it's really, really powerful because we're all older students who like went through it, who know exactly what we're talking about. There's probably 100 of us that have gone through the program now all over campus. Alumni that started the program now work for the university as staff members, full-time staff members in various offices, dean of students, MESA, and so there's support all over campus, and we really try to create this network for students to be able to navigate that, and that when there is a need, when you do recognize you need help or support in any sort of way, whether it's academic, personal, emotional, that there's somebody on campus for you to talk to, for you to connect with. And I think that's one of the spaces that I've spent most of my time with on campus. And the recent year or so, the couple of spaces that I've created included, I am one of the founding sisters of Epsilon Alpha Sigma Sorority Incorporated, and it's the Empowered Arab Sisterhood, and there's a national board and a national chapter, but we brought a colony currently to the University of Michigan, and that's just been a whole different journey, you know. Creating a space for Arab women, because there's so many of us that come every single year, and not all of us are pre-med, you know, not all of us are going into medicine. And so for our community, the Arab community in specific, those of us that choose a field outside of medicine, there's navigational support that's definitely needed. And so it's creating a space for women to grow professionally, to academically, to go after like academic endeavors and professional skills and leadership skills. And we do that together as like, again, older women who have gone through it are now kind of nearing the end of their undergrad, even though I still have one more year. I'm in like that second half phase. And now there's new first-year students that have just come in, and we just crossed our first line, and we're about 5 or 6 of them were first semester women. And so it's like bringing them in early on, giving them this support, giving them this, when you need help with classes, figuring out schedules, figuring out research, summer opportunities, all this stuff is, they have the older generation to rely on. And it's like, we didn't have that, and I wish we had that when I came in. And so a lot of the spaces that we created was, what did we wish we had? Another thing that I created alongside Arwa Gayyar was the Successful Arab Leaders at Michigan, which would be the Salam, was like the acronym for it, and Salam stands for peace in Arabic. But Salam was the first ever Arab orientation program. And it was just so interesting because I think people were confused at the time when we launched this thing, because people were kind of just like, what is this? Like, we've never heard about this, like an Arab orientation. But then it was like, we had waves of students come in. And like, we're in a community who just recently got a racial category box for students to check. And so when we recruited students, we didn't even have that information. We didn't have demographic information, any contact information. We kind of really had to do a lot of grassroots recruiting, which other communities I know don't have to do. So it was an additional struggle on our part. But the 2 days that we held the program, we had over 40 students show up. And it was just like, and that was just undergrads. And then we have over 80 upperclassmen show up that have come back and like were engaging with the first year students. And you had faculty, staff, administrators, everybody came out, and it was so amazing to see. And you definitely saw that this was so needed in the community. But yeah, it was 2 days, and it was just like, it was our first year of her doing it. And there were so many connections formed with the community. And we've definitely made the first year students feel like you're being welcomed into the Arab community, which is very difficult to find as first year students. I remember the reason why Salam, the idea for it came about, was I remember being a first year, and I lived on North Campus. And I did have Arab friends because my roommate was Arab, and one of my best friends that I made was also Arab, but I wasn't inclined with the community the way I am now, and it took me about a year to a year and a half into my sophomore year to finally feel connected to the community, and to be like, for us to be programming, and to have events with them, to share the culture and to embrace all of that. And so for a lot of students that is the case, and so providing a space early on from the beginning for them to be very intentionally brought in, and a lot of organic peer mentorship happening. And we have so much experience within the community that's just being passed on, and so our community efforts are also being passed on, and it allows us to continue fighting this, you know, existence battle on campus that we've continued to work towards. To go through classes at the university is, I think, provides you with a lot of education, but I think the work that I've engaged on campus with, like, organizing communities, delegating tasks, organizing committees and people, I just gained a lot of other skills that I don't think are transferable in a classroom setting. And I think that those are what's so important for our community, and I think for everybody in general, but I think particularly with the work that I do with my community, is that, you know, learning to facilitate conversations with people, learning to work in communities, to work on teams, to be a leader in certain spaces, to support work that other people are doing, to be good community allies, and I think that just those skills it's harder to teach by definition, but easier to teach by action, I think, is what I began to notice. You know, I'm in a lot of public health courses, and so we learn the meaning of allyship, or like critical reflection, critical thinking, critical pedagogy, I think was one of the words that was thrown in class. But and to me, it's like sometimes these definitions I can understand them, but to practice them is so different. And I think, especially for people that come from for communities that are predominantly their ethnic background, understanding other identities, understanding how to navigate these communities and these spaces, knowing that one day, no matter what field you work in, whether it's public health, law, medicine, social work, engineering, that these things manifest in every single space. And so if you saw me a couple of years ago, and I think that the reflection of my own journey is what makes me realize that trust, like when the first year students come up and they're like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, trust me, like, just, it's a process, follow the process. But my first year, like as a first year student coming in, I had very terrible speaking skills. Like in terms of public speaking, I couldn't articulate myself, I couldn't get my thoughts together. So I think that even seeing how much that's changed, and seeing how much I'm able to now talk about the things that I care about and organize my thoughts and make it come across in a very specific way is so powerful, and it's a tool that I'll use forever in my career. Yeah, and there's the surface level of we want to exist, we want to create spaces for people to feel welcome and at home, and to make this campus theirs, and to have representation in places where historically we were not represented. But then there's also the larger, this is good for our community, this is good for everyone's individual development, for the things that they gain in the long run, and then so much that they'll take away from them once they leave Michigan or go into their careers. I think in like if you think about it, you know, Arabs have been coming to the United States for generations now, since like back in the 1920s and the 30s and all that. But college wasn't really reinforced, and so a lot of us are first generation students. A lot of us are attending we're attending the best public institution in the country, and so providing these skills, providing them with these tools, developing them in various different ways is like, these people are going to go out into very different fields, and now an Arab voice is going to be heard in spaces where we were once not even existing, in political places, in community aspects, in so many ways in which we weren't represented before. You know, our voice wasn't heard. Because there was nobody there to speak on our behalf. There was nobody there from the community. There was nobody there that knows the experience of a first generation Arab or an immigrant Arab or a refugee Arab. You know, that wasn't there before, but now these students have already accessed a public institution like the University of Michigan, and with like the right development, with the right support, they're able to take all of these skills and transfer them into their future work. And you just build very resilient change agents, because they engaged in this work before, and they saw the impact that it had on such a small, it's like, compared to the nation, this is such a small community. And then it's, you put that on a larger scale, and you just, you know, I think at the end of every like program or whatever, or initiative or anything, you look, as like the leader who's organized and done everything, you look at how people are engaging, the laughs, the smiles, they're leaving together, they're now in group chats, and they're like, and you see that build, and it builds a resilience in you, and it makes you feel like there is work being done here, there's good work being done, and yeah, these people are they're gonna kill it one day. I think it depends on like it depends on what time I'm talking about. Because there was a time when I was still earlier on in like college, where I was like a freshman, almost a sophomore, that summer, where I was like the director of the Big House program, so I was organizing our first part, which was a 4-day program. And so it was one of the first things that were very big that I organized, right? And so at that point in my development, it was a lot of like learning, it was a lot of understanding, it was a lot of doing a lot of the nitty-gritty work to know the process, to think through all the logistical pieces, to think through, you know, who are the presenters, who are the community members that are coming out. And so it was a lot of me learning and understanding that stuff, because it was also new to me. I think now that I'm closer to like my senior year and I'm closer to leaving, now it's more of a fact that I need to like pass it down. Now it's a matter of being a mentor to the new generation of organizers who are thinking through things. And so that was done for me by both members of my community, but other communities as well through pilot. Like I've said, there was Latinx leaders, there was Asian leaders, leaders of all diverse backgrounds and so on. And so that mentored me. And then so now it's a matter of taking all the things that I've learned and passing them on. And I think that the allies have been so crucial and so important in the work that we've done. The Latinx community has been a very strong ally of the Arab community. In a lot of ways, we've supported our community efforts. We held the first Arab and Latinx Wolverine Day together, where we brought up admitted students in around April to the university and kind of like convinced them like, this is where you should be, because look at your community, it's right here. The strong ties between the communities is really, really important, because it's not feeling like you're going at it alone or anything, but it's support, bouncing off ideas, gearing interest. Our communities have a lot of differences, so it's seeing like what worked for them, what worked for us, comparing structures and models and designs, which is all really, really important in the programming that we do. And like the Multi-Ethnic Student Affairs Office holds all the mentorship programs and all the ethnically based orientations and mentorship programs. And it's even looking at those designs. You know, what does SIBS do, which is the like Black Orientation Week? What does ALMA do, which is the Latinx orientation? What does Salam do, the Arab orientation? And comparing these communities' efforts across lines and seeing what's working for which community and why is that. And I think it's really, really important. And when we think of like the next year and the year after that, how do we make it better? We were just a first year program, so there's a lot of remodeling. There's a lot of support to have. And during Salam, you know, there was so many people from the Latinx community that came out, and they were so excited. They were like, Alma, their orientation program's been running for almost 18 years. Ours was a first-year program, and so they were all really excited and came out and support, and we're like helping with logistics, and we're being like some of the greatest volunteers. And so it's excited when other people are also excited for the work that's happening for your community. Yeah. I think accomplishing Salam was one of the biggest highlights, just because seeing over 40 first-year students coming in, engaging older people from the community, seeing how much like they needed and wanted this space, because the first like week of school isn't that busy. You go to your classes, but then at the end of the day, you kind of have nothing to do. There's not really studying going on. And so we held it the first week of classes, and so I thought that may hinder like participation, like people are in classes now, like we just didn't know, but we're like, because of like the calendar schedule, it's like this might be our best option. We did it, and then like people were coming in waves, you know, like people didn't have anything to do and didn't feel connected to other parts of campus, but they heard something about their identity, they heard something that they related to and showed up. And a lot of them didn't know what it was about. Like, imagine launching something, everyone's been gone all summer while this work was being done, and then we kind of just launched it. People are just moving back in, and they were like, this is what this is. And even like upperclassmen, undergrads were confused, but people just came in waves and they interacted, and it was a lot of community effort, of community building, creating stronger ties across people. And it was like, a lot of us now, since we're like juniors or seniors, forgot who was in high school, you know, forgot those who were younger than us in high school, but seeing people that like we had remembered, and like, but they were so young at the time when we graduated, and so it was like great to rebuild that community. And yeah. I think that was one of the biggest successes for me, was seeing Salam come to life, because it's something that I had always wanted to do, and having like Arwa to support me, and then like her and I like working with like staff members in Mesa and other community people like the Arab Student Association, and creating something that a lot of people now care about, and so sustainability becomes something we think about, because they want to see it again, you know, and hearing so many upperclassmen say, man, I wish I had this, you know, and a lot of first-year students say that was one of the best times of our freshman year, you know, like when we think back to the fall, like that was one of the best times, you know, because like they all left together. We ended at like 9 or 10. They all left together, went and hung out, and then like they're like this like closer knit family. They have like a 2021 Wolverine. What are they? 2022? 2022? 3? Whatever their class is. They have like a group chat with each other, and so it's like the class of 2020, my class of 2020, we don't have a group chat together, but they're really close and they bounce off each other a lot, and with support in classes and stuff. And so it was really unique to see that happen, because it was a first for our community.
Would you say it surprised you?
It did. I was nervous. We held it in the basement of Trotter, but like that was the only room we got. There was no room. This place was packed with so many people, community members, allies, other support systems. Amber was there, so like Amber stopped by and checked in and said gave a hello and an introduction to people. But it was just so unique to see this, because it's never happened before. It's never existed, and I think for a long time nobody thought it would exist or could exist. And so to see it come to life was just, it definitely left a smile on my face at the end of the time. And we didn't really like, there was nothing special about it. There wasn't an over, you know, like glamorization of it or any sort of thing. Like there was pizza one day, there was like Arab food the other day, and then people just like getting to know each other, hearing about Arab activism. There was a lot of like student panels, and there was nobody that was brought in that was like a celebrity guest or anything. So it was just like the connections are what made the night, and it was a great 2 days. And more people showed up the second day, so I was just like, this is crazy. I was like, how is this happening? But they went, the first day, the people there went and told their friends, and then there was a whole wave of people the second day, and I was like, wow. there was even upperclassmen that came that I had never seen before, but they were like, we heard about this, but they were like, we wanted to see the community too. Like, there were Arabs that weren't connected to the community, but were already sophomores and juniors, and were like, we wanted to connect with the community. And then it just all happened in the basement of Trotter. It was great. Oh, man. Again, me and Arwa, like and then the founders of like the sorority, and then like all these other parts of campus, just being very, very intentional and smart about passing this down and teaching the new generation and making sure it's sustainable and giving it the right support. And so the minute the Salam 2018 was over and we had like this hooray, Arwa and I looked at each other and we're like, 2019 has to be bigger and better, but 2019 can't just be me and her. It has to be like a whole committee of maybe second-year students now who can do this work, and providing them with the tools and the resources and gearing that interest. And there's definitely interest. They all want to plan Salam. They're all so excited about it happening next year. And so, yeah, I just want to make sure that before we leave, like, the right support is given to keep it going, to make sure it's, you know, it's alive for as long as it possibly can be, and that it gets better and bigger every single year, and that the way me and Arwa cared about the program, others will too. And so, yeah, and it's for the community. You know, at the end of the day, like, we put it under the Arab Student Association. People were brought in, like, it was started with her and I in like a conversation in the fishbowl. She was like, I want to start a mentorship program for Arab students. I was like, I want to start an orientation program. We're like, okay, let's do this. When we combine the two. And so Salam is the orientation program. The Arab Leadership Network is the first-year development program for Arab students. And so a conversation that was started in the Fish, and then we brought in community members and staff members and all these people. And so it's the Arab legacy on campus. And that's what it really is. And so it can't be done without them, and it can't be done without support from all these different parts of campus. And so it's for the community, and I can't wait for the community to continue it. I think that when I started to do this work, or like I had one success, at times I was kind of like, okay, I got this, now I can do it, you know, now I am a student leader. But it was like recognizing that all the projects were all so different, and there was a different process for everything, and it really was a process. It wasn't I had the idea of an Arab mentorship program, and wanting to start the Arab orientation about a year and a half before it was actually done, before conversation around it even started. But the one thing I had to learn was everything was a process, and you need to build the foundation, you need to gear the interest. And so right when I thought I knew what I was doing, there was always more I was learning. There was always more steps I had to take, more people to engage, more people to talk to. Like, it wasn't as easy as just doing it, you know? There's so many steps you need to take. There's so many parts of campus you need to navigate and understand, and gearing interest and maintaining interest in with. Yeah, so I think my biggest challenge was just going with the process. And so now when I tell everybody, like, trust the process, it's like, I didn't even trust the process going in. But there's just such a transition from when you're in your first couple years to your last couple years, and when you've done this over and over for so long, it's very, very different. So in the beginning, I needed to learn everything I possibly could, and I'm still learning so much as we continue to move forward, because all the programs are different. All the programs, whether it's different offices, different funding support, different program designs, they all require different things, different sorts of knowledge, different approaches. And so there's a lot of similarities between them, like agendas and stuff like that, but the overarching purpose of them is very, very different. And so every single time I engaged a new project, I needed to be very, very patient. There was a lot of patience that was required, because organizing the Big House program was very different from starting Salam and ALN, which was very different from starting a sorority. So then the foundational pieces were different. It was building things from the ground up versus BHP, which was already structured. building foundations, understanding purpose, finding objectives, gearing interest. And so everything was just so different. So there's definitely a lot of like, it needed a lot of patience. It needed a lot of quiet work. I think that a lot of time it's a lot of behind the scenes quiet work, meetings, proposals, plannings, all this other stuff before the end product comes to life. And so I think purpose would be a huge one for me. You know, sometimes it's a lot of work, a lot of late nights, a lot of meetings in terms of like, you got to balance school with it too, and you need to, there's school, social life, there's all this other stuff that you want to pursue. And so I think purpose is a huge one, because you always need to know, why am I doing this? Why am I involved in so much, doing so much? So I think purpose would be a big one for me. Being organized is also a big one, because it could be with so much going on, it could be overwhelming at times. But I think that being organized, being very I just keep repeating the same words over and over again. So organized, purposeful. I think resilient is a big one, and I think that you need to engage the work. You need to always be wanting to and ready to. The way for us, for the work to get better, and for these programs who are very new, are very like, have so much improvement that they can, that I won't see, because I'll no longer be an undergrad, you know. Salam year 7 will be very different from Salam year 1 and 2, and I won't see that through. But I think if the people planning it are very, very resilient, they'd always want better for their community, and they'd always want more, and they'd always want more support, more structure, more this, more that. And so I think that comes from a lot of resilience, because that's going to be a lot of organizing, a lot of like, you have to talk to various parts of campus to get people to agree to this, and to get funding, and to get all this other stuff that the program will require. Same thing with the sorority, same thing with like pilot and the big house programs, to be very, very resilient in the work that you're doing, because you're so passionate about it and you want to see it be better. And as you know, Salam, what we did this year was a capacity of 40 students, but there's over 100 Arab students that come in every single year. So to support that many students, you know, you need to have more resilience, because it's just a lot more work, and you want to structure the program better, and you want to make it better and bigger and brighter, and I don't know what else. And that's work I won't see through. So it's like, that's one of the ways in which it got started. There were people who were very resilient, providing with their community with more. So we started these programs, and not to say that more programs won't be started. Which is great, and I'm all for it. But resilience is a big one. Not taking a no for an answer. Not like, believing in yourself has to be a big one, because I think a lot of the time there were decisions that we needed to make that we weren't sure about, you know. It's hard to tell with new programs, with new things that you do. There's decisions you need to make all the time. And I know with like me and Arwa being like kind of the two people spearheading Salam, it was like, you can't help but feeling that it falls on you, that if this blows up, like, that's kind of on you. Even though like no one would have seen it that way, I think her and I, because we were so invested in the work that we were doing, felt that way. And so being confident in the choices you make, and that if things are not going to always go in the best of ways. And so I think with programs, you can pre-plan as much as possible. Come the day of, there's always something that comes up. And so being very confident in yourself, in the work that you do, and your training, to be able to navigate the space and have to make some decisions, and kind of whatever the outcome of the decision is, also being able to adjust based on what that is. So I think for Salam 2018, we had ordered an amount of food, and again, we just weren't expecting this outcome, and so we were running out pretty quickly, and so we needed to order more, and so it was like, yeah, let's put in the order. And we may have ordered a little too much extra, but that was like, all right, fine, you're taking food home, you know? So it was like, but knowing that like the minute you kind of see things like seeing food running out, or seeing people who are not engaging, or like, you know what I mean? Just being able to adjust to the space and keeping your eyes open and alert to everything going on. and then feeling confident enough to make the decision or adjustments to the space as they need. So confidence is a big one too. I've had to work on that a lot because sometimes it's like you're scared, you don't want to mess it up, like things are going so well, but like you got to make the decision, you got to move, like there's so many moving pieces to this stuff, and so it's always being like you're 150%, which also means you finding time to take care of yourself too. And so I think for me, for people who genuinely love and care about the work, it never felt like work. Like it kind of started feeling very normal to me when like we weren't running programs. I'd be like, I'm kind of bored. Like, I'm not really planning anything right now. Like even right now where we're training new people to really take over and to really like, I'm getting kind of bored. Like I don't really do anymore of like, a lot of like the super work in terms of like setting agendas and doing all this and doing all that, because that's something for the younger generations to start learning how to do and stuff, and so really wanting to pass that on. So I'm kind of like, I just check in on people. Like I'm getting kind of bored. I'm getting bored. Well, we have to start designing SITM 2019, so it'll be a lot more work very soon. Surely around the corner is a GRE that I have to take, and that's like very near future because I think time goes by so quickly. A GRE is in the near future, and graduate applications are in the near future. I think if I were to stay at Michigan for graduate school, I hope to like complete undergrad and go right into my graduate program, just because I'm not really sure what you can do with a bachelor's in public health, and I kind of want to get my degree to actually start working and creating the change that I want to create. But if I end up staying at Michigan, these things could still be things that I support and I see through. If I'm not at Michigan, I don't know. But I think in the long run is I definitely want to take the things that I've created, take the things that I've learned, and put it into the field of public health, because I think that these types of programming, although a lot of them are very higher education, fall into the realm of higher education, are very applicable across disciplines. And so I think that creating these things in like a public health world, or creating, if I end up getting like a policy degree, a health policy degree or whatever, and I'm creating health policies, now I have all this facilitation experience, I have all this organizational experience, all this, and I have the perspective of an Arab American. So I really want to put our identity into these various spaces in public health where they don't really we're not high in number. A long-term goal would be to hopefully get a PhD to contribute to research on Arab Americans, because that also is lacking. In every single one of my classes, it's like, I want to do research on, I want to do my paper on Arab Americans, and your professor has to tell you, like, this is going to be very difficult for you. You cannot get 10 sources on this topic because it doesn't exist. And so it's like, because of all the community work that I've done, the experiences that I've had, I really want to test a lot of the things that I created programs for, that I kind of had to think through. And I think it'd be so interesting to contribute to that research and provide that for future generations that, hopefully one day they'll get to write papers on, Arabs and health and different parts of, and different careers and professions and all that. So, yeah.